confused we got working slides. Should we try non-full screen? It's not ideal, but... Is it related to PowerPoint? Like...
Please try now.
Okay. So it's Peter slides as well. Okay. Okay, we are online again, hopefully for a little bit longer this time. These are PDFs now, so let's try to do what we can. In Drupal, everyone is writing modules, but one great thing of Drupal is you don't need to write modules or code. So this session is dedicated to the professional site builders and hobbyists, because one of the best things that made Drupal great in the beginning is you didn't know how to code, you didn't need to have formal training, and you could still build yourself a site. And this is really, really powerful. So all the modules I show today hopefully are empowering these site builders again some more to make better use of it, because I feel that's a little bit of a part of Drupal that we as a community, or as core especially, have a little bit neglected. And while in other parts we obviously also have improved it a lot, but there's always more that you can do. So today's session is about components, which is a topic pretty dear to my heart, and I think it's a keystone for building sites without code. We originally started with a vision for components in Amsterdam 2019, and refined it online in 2021. The idea is to never think about theming in the traditional way again, but instead use the modern concept of components. So Drupal 6 already was pretty close to components of how they are today used in React and other things like that, because it was pretty pure, but we kind of lost that over the time. So what is a component? A good component example is a card. You have image, text, and call to action link. Components have one property: they are independent, and that is really important. That means they are completely self-contained. All of the styling and interactivity is intrinsic to the component. Nothing comes from the outside. So the goal is that a component, regardless of what you do, is always looking the same way. So that's a really, really important property, and it's one of the reasons why components are so great, because of these non-interdependence, because of them being confined to its ways, you don't have to deal with so many side effects. So that's a great part for components. In practical terms, this means a component is composed usually by HTML, some CSS, and JavaScript. Okay. Like very normally, you have the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. And then a component has some kind of input. So you have the properties, how a component is styled, what a component is displaying, and then in the end, the children of why, not really, but some complex inner content. So to give an example, a very, very simple component is here, my card equals card. And a more complex example that you can see is we have a my card. We give it a property of a red color. We are putting a card on it. And inside this component, we are putting another component, which is a CTA component. I'm just going to continue. Oh, there you go. You can see. With a simple component, you could still have the my card component get out to a CTA component, but this is just a little bit of a different way of doing things. One thing is slotting it in, and the other part is essentially having the component self-decide of what's happening. How to reach those independents, there are different ways. One of them is the BEM notation. That means you are defining very defined classes that are only applying to this component. In the front-end world, we also have styled components, scoped components, and several others, where you're essentially using inline CSS or putting CSS directly to your component, and the JavaScript framework is doing some magic to applying that. But for a pure, more Drupal backend way, we have like this availability of defining classes like class, card, and card title, and we have the ability to define Tailwind CSS parts. Tailwind CSS, if you haven't heard, is very dear to, I really love it, and I'm a huge fan of it because you can just write your markup, you write your properties directly within the markup and your template, and you're done. And if you combine that with some kind of instant preview, you can really, really rapidly, very, very fast approach those things. The same for JavaScript. We put a data Drupal selector, and then we put some Alpine.js like that. But all of those cases, we are manipulating the markup here directly, and that's pretty hard. Because we tried that, and we learned that Drupal is not really suited for the component because it has historically been growing in a certain way. And as I already said, Drupal 6 was pretty clean pre-process and clean input to a very clean template. But then some forms needed theming, so we end up with the render arrays, and then later we did some more things. So I've tried several ways of re-implementing components within Drupal in a much more simple way than the theme system. But what you quickly learn is that Drupal kind of needs this complexity. Here's a quick syntax if you want to try to do something very React style in PHP, which looks very familiar to anyone that knows JavaScript and React. So as I said, Contrib needs this flexibility because we need to enhance other modules and core via those mutation observers and the render array tree, etc. Yeah. So do you need a PhD for Drupal theming? Some say you do, some say you don't. There's so many templates and template snippets. There's so many things and hard to find things, and theme suggestions help somewhat, but overall it's complicated. And I hear from enterprise clients especially that they are like, it's a little bit complicated. We want to do things more the React way, and that's where we come a little bit later too. So the Drupal theming state is neither easy. If someone disagrees, that's fine, but nor especially pleasant. And of course, there's certain people that just love it. That's exactly the right thing. But for the majority that I've spoken with it, they would love it to be a little bit more pleasant. So component library to the rescue. It's the first module I want to show today. You override any template in the system from the UI and break your site in the most simple way. There's no easier way. No. The ability to be able to really override any template gives you a lot of responsibility too. And yes, right now you're still able to break your site with component library. That's component_library, the module. But it's overall working pretty well. So I don't think a demo will work within a PDF. No, it won't. What would have happened here is that we would have clicked this override button, and then you would have taken this date, and we clicked the date, and we could select any template on the page, and graphically we could then change the template, have some nice instant preview of how it looks, and then save it, and the date is changed. So, but another part that I want to quickly go in is some of the future very, 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 very exciting work, and that is workspaces and component library together with a little module called WSE config. It's probably one of the most underestimated Drupal modules that exists, workspaces. Workspaces allows you to essentially, you create your content in a workspace, like a sandbox. And afterwards, you can publish all your content at once. Before, no one is seeing this content, no one. And this is fantastic because you can create editorial workflows. You can create approval workflows. You can create all kinds of things. Or even if you're just a single site user, hobbyist, whatever, you can just preview everything, change something on the homepage, change some article, change some things, and with this, hopefully also change your whole theme directly from the UI as the site builder, as a power user. And obviously not everyone wants to give people that kind of power, but your mileage may vary in that. So yeah, redesign your whole site within the workspace, have someone else approve and preview it, and then push everything live when it's ready. What's also possible with this workspaces config approach is to give power users the ability to change the view within a workspace and then publish the view changes. So you get kind of like a little bit of revisioning for power users within Drupal. For all those that are just using config code and are like familiar on the command line, that's obviously not the way, but this is a way for site builders, power users, and editors. Decoupled Drupal and the admin experience. What is decoupled Drupal? And now we'll speed way up, so please bear with me. The frontend is powered by React. The Drupal only serves the data, no markup at all. So in a nutshell, the frontend application is fully responsible for all rendering, and so we are avoiding the need for the Drupal theming PhD. Yay. The problem is decoupled Drupal is great in theory, but hard in practice. Server-side rendering, aliases, pages, menus, layout builder, paragraphs. How do you get all of that done? There have been some great distributions created already, some great starter kits. There's always coming out new things, like Pensionet just released some great Next.js starter kits to make it easier to develop things. There's Next for Drupal. There's several parts to make that easier, but it's still pretty hard in practice. And there's all that you lose. I've been originally a real opponent, as much as one can be an opponent, of decoupled approaches, because there's no contextual links, no local tasks, no admin bar, and no layout builder. What you see is what you get. Some we've gained back so far. So for example, with Next for Drupal, you have like an iframe of the whole site. Then there can be different solutions with preview buttons to view specific sections. And some have built like placeholders for layout builder to kind of make it look like that. And some, with the power of GraphQL, have even already achieved the holy goal of rendering those GraphQL parts in a more true what you see is what you get way. So what we did was we created SPA admin. The name is totally bad because SPA is single page application, and this is for any decoupled application. But that was its original name. It kept it for now. The HTML is rendered as usual. The decoupled application is then mounted to the main content. Then again, the decoupled application has a placeholder for Drupal content, and you just need to add one data attribute for adding contextual links. We gained back even more we have now the admin bar back, contextual links, and we have a placeholder for administrative links like edit. So, but like in the coupled world, we also got all the problems back. So because now again, Drupal theme is influencing the front end and the front end theme is influencing Drupal. Fortunately, with many things like React, you have very, very scoped classes that are never conflicting with Drupal. Or if you are using Tailwind, you also have probably, except for blog, not really many conflicts. So there are definite ways around that, but yeah, the problems are definitely back. And it would be really cool if at some point we could put all Drupal admin interface like in web components, have them completely isolated from everything else, but that's still a future endeavor. What we still want to gain back is the navigation in Drupal. That means that you edit an article, you save it, and then you come to node article title and you want to display it kind of like in the hybrid app, but you also want to keep like the action links, etc. Layout builder and the decoupled theme. So what we need is a placeholder for entities and blocks. Now we get a little bit theoretical, but this is how it looks. So we have the admin bar, it's always present, and alone that is giving a great effect. We had a project where we prototyped the whole thing, and we had the same theme, once coupled and once decoupled. And people at some point got lost, am I in the decoupled or in the coupled theme? Because there wasn't that much difference anymore. And I think this is what decoupled Drupal needs to look like, in my opinion. But we still have the Drupal main content HTML. It's nicely within the decoupled application. It's below the decoupled menu, but we need this loaded via Ajax. So what we do is we put a placeholder for the entity output. So essentially what SPA admin does, it puts like this little X decoupled component in, which is a web component. And this web component essentially then is, again, going into React, and React is then rendering the node finally via whatever means are set up for rendering nodes. For implementing web components, the easiest is to just use preact instead of React, which is a React flavor, but which is really great and which can be used for that. Preact has also some other advantage. If someone is not having a JavaScript build system PhD, but still wants to use something modern like React, but doesn't want to deal with all those setups, etc., then a great combination is preact and HTM, because you can just include two libraries. It's like jQuery, like in the old days, and you can write your code directly in JavaScript, no build step needed, and you just reload your page and your changes are there. No hot reload, no nothing needed. You can add all of those if you want, but the simplicity can be there. So now that we have a web component, we have one problem. JSON API needs to know which fields to load. Because if you've ever worked with JSON API before, there's like a block, and that block has like a field image, then that field image is not loaded automatically. And there's two ways to deal with that. The first is a component resolver. That's very simple. We're just mapping one content type to the other parts, whatever needs to be included. The other is something that I originally prototyped in the good old Drupal 7 days with services views. Someone had, funnily enough, the same idea with REST views. And we also created a module out of that, and that is called a JSON API field formatter. And JSON API field formatter, that's a new module, allows you to essentially use the power of view modes. Again, use what Drupal already provides. Use the UI to set up a server-side setup of how a very, very nice and clean output of this block, this node, this whatever, is rendered. So here we are shifting again a little bit of the responsibility from the front end back to the back end to the biggest role, the site builder. And the site builder can then essentially say, hey, here's clean output for your front end. The front end can say, yay, I don't need to dig deep into JSON API structures and find all of those things. So that's a very nice thing. And it's fully spec compliant because we're exposing it as a meter property. So once we want to go to the decoupled layout builder, there's a component resolver for blocks needed. So we do exactly the same as we did before. And now you can imagine you have like layout builder, and the layout builder has like all of those blocks like that. And now every one of those blocks is again pigging back into the React app, and the React app is doing the final rendering. So you have the true what you see is what you get. And now to finally bring everything to the app, the only decision you need to make is, do you want to cheat a little bit and allow Drupal to generate some markup which you're styling in the app and then just replacing the placeholders to whatever components you want? Just need to pass the DOM, replace the placeholders, load them all at once, and there you go. Or if you're wanting to pass what Layout Builder is providing, the same markup classes, and get that from the Layout Builder information. Yeah, so a demo coming soon for that. Follow Tech1 Consulting and @Fabian Franz on Twitter. Coming later again. Next steps is Next.js integration and the pure server-side rendering with Preact. Please also check out a new module, Page Cache Boost, because it allows you to do Next-style revalidation without needing Next. Because I said, if Next can cheat, we can cheat as well. Essentially, pages served from the cache as stale for 5 seconds, meanwhile regenerated in Drupal using a terminate event and then sent back with full stampede protection. I think the best approach architecture for a company that's Drupal-centric is where Drupal is serving the page and is essentially using Node SSR, a farm of servers, for rendering the HTML, but is serving it, is caching it, and is doing all the cache tag things and everything that's needed. And now there's a little approach that we don't have time for, but if anyone wants to know more, there's actually a pretty great way for doing something like Next does with SSG and SSR, but without all the complexity. You just define one data loader and you have full SSR loading with all resources loaded in parallel. It's pretty cool. Last thing, for the last 3 minutes, Layout Builder Plus. Layout Builder in core is you click add block, add new block. You click the block you want, you configure it in add text and configure, the block is placed. Layout Builder Plus. You open a sidebar with all blocks to add. You drag the block you want to the right section. It gets displayed with placeholder content, and that's it. So you can very, very, very rapidly build layouts using drag and drop, which is really professional and nice. In fact, it's so nice that I never really want to build a site with Layout Builder because it felt always so cumbersome. And once I've seen that, I was like, wow, I really need to build a personal homepage just to use this tool. That's really cool. Yeah, again, a video won't work, but we also don't have time. So I tweet the video out later on Twitter, uploading it to YouTube, and then you will have it. But yeah, thanks for Pex, who's in the audience. Usually this would have been such an amazing demo, you would all be applauding to him, but maybe you can do too. Pex, if you can quickly stand up. There he is. And thanks so much for all your hard work on that. Thank you for Tech1 Consulting for supporting it, and to our great clients who are open to those great ideas. It's definitely a dream come true for me, the Layout Builder Plus. Only limitation is right now the focus is on reusable blocks because, again, we are working it with Workspace and Workflow. But you can find it here, try it out, and have fun. Thank you. I think we have one question. Yes, for sure. I'll be uploading the slides, and again, you'll find them. I'll be posting them to Twitter, so you'll be able to download it. You'll have the videos included in them, so you can look at the demos in your leisure. Yes, I don't know to what it was, but I assume it's a decoupled part. But yes, it's working. It's perfectly working. There's no problems with that approach with translations. Yes, it does work with dynamic content and caching. So it's not just for generating a static site, that can also be done, but essentially when Drupal is the main page content provider, then it's working. Can you, mic is working again. Okay, cool. We've so far added some custom block types, a slide and a hero. And that's pretty cool. And then we enabled Layout Builder Plus. We also put those fields into special sections. And we added some basic placeholder content. So now that we are almost set up, and this is around 3 minutes, so we are adding a custom page after we, one more block type. Okay, so list item. And again, here, the important thing is to select a section, Layout Builder Plus aging, and enabling Layout Builder Plus. So saving that. And then we are, and if you put a required field and you don't put any default content, you will get like a nice shiny warning that Drupal will just provide it. And now finally, after all of that, what we will be doing is we'll be enabling Layout Builder Plus for certain layouts. So you can certainly restrict it to different layouts, saving that configuration. And now finally, we are adding the content landing page. Test landing page, saving that. And now we come to the layout. And now what you probably have a hard time to see is there's a little button at the bottom here, but it opens the sidebar. And then you can like add any blocks here, list item. And we want to make it that it's always open, so you don't have to open it again. Yeah, you can just drag and drop, but list item isn't allowed on that part, so that didn't work. And we just put another hero. And then finally, we can also use all of Drupal's blocks, like the authored by block, and then it's asking you the configuration, you save it, and that's it. So yeah, that's Layout Builder Plus.